Hi there, welcome to She Spice. We contemplate distinction. Everything unquestionably revolves around the excitement and glitz, the extravagance, the acclaim, and the cash it resembles. A definitive dream being renowned isn't all daylight and rainbows. Famous people are essentially residing under a magnifying lens. Everything they might do is taken apart and dissected by the public, particularly with virtual entertainment, making it simpler than any time in recent memory for fans to watch them. And we should not disregard the paparazzi, those tenacious people who do pretty much anything to have that ideal chance. Sure, while we could begrudge their captivating lives from a remote place, there's a ton of strain and examination that accompanies being at the center of attention. Yet here is where things get truly fascinating. At any point, we saw how a portion of our one symbols appeared to meet terrible closures. I'm discussing those secretive big-name passings that leave us scratching our heads. Well, rumors from far and wide suggest that there's more going on than meets the eye. Enter Joe Rogan, the person who won't hesitate to express his real thoughts. The word on the road is that he's going to let the cat out of the bag on how Hollywood may be associated with some obscure business with regards to offing our darling stars. So who are these sibs that Hollywood probably has something to do with? How about we make a plunge? First on the rundown is Michael Jackson. On June 25, 2009, the world got profoundly impacted as the news broke that Michael Jackson, the Lord of Pop himself, had died at only 50 years of age. Yet here's the thing, since that portentous day, there's been this waiting haze of secret looming over his demise. You realize the sort that creeps you out and leaves you doubting all that you assumed. You realize they intend to take my sibling out, and my sibling knew it. And that is the reason he told me over and over and over and over, and more than once, that this was planned to happen to him. This is the way everything went down. Michael's own Dr. Conrad Murray tracked him down, oblivious. Subsequent to giving him a few prescriptions to assist him with getting some rest, he acts quickly, begins CPR, and calls for reinforcement. Murray's trouble call to crisis administrations was quickly trailed by the appearance of paramedics, who vigorously attempted to resuscitate Jackson for a horrifying 42 minutes at his home, in spite of their tireless undertakings. The gravity of the circumstances became evident as Jackson was shipped to the clinic at 1:14 p.m. From that point on, clinical experts at the Ronald Reagan, UCLA Clinical Center participated in a bold fight to revive him for nearly an hour. Unfortunately, their endeavors demonstrated primitiveness, and Jackson was articulated dead at 2:26 p.m. There were clashing reports twirling around about Michael Jackson's well-being, paving the way to his troublesome demise. A few biographers portrayed a man battling with different medical problems, including sleep deprivation, lupus, low self-esteem, and low body weight. They even referenced that his family was worried about his prosperity and had encouraged him to look for clinical assistance. Furthermore, there were notices of past fights with medicine. Torment, prescription enslavement, a reality affirmed by his dermatologist anyway. There were likewise accounts from clinical experts who guaranteed that they had seen MJ only days before his passing, and he gave off an impression of being looking great both intellectually and truly, and get this. Individuals from his stage team, who had been with him the day preceding his demise during practices, depicted him as sound and ready for business. The practices even happened until past 12 p.m., and MJ invested energy with fans subsequently. It was just later that he started encountering a sleeping disorder. In the early long periods of June 25 to 2009, MJ contacted Dr. Murray for assist with his rest. Gives the specialist regulated a blend of meds to assist him with napping off, including Propa, which MJ had utilized before for rest. Regardless of various infusions, he actually couldn't float off by around 10:40 a.m. MJ was still completely alert, provoking Dr. Murray to give him a weakened dose of lidocaine. Following Michael Jackson's unfortunate passing, a nitty-gritty post-mortem examination shed light on concerning discoveries that caused a stir among specialists. It was uncovered that the famous performer had been regulated as a mixed drink of strong prescriptions, including benzodiazepine, for example, Molum and lorazepam, alongside propofol, a strong sedative. These substances were joined with extra portions of diazepam, and Ativan ended up being a deadly blend, highlighting the weightiness of the circumstances in spite of the disturbing presence of these substances in his framework. The dissection portrayed by and large actual well-being for Jackson strikingly. His heart displayed vigorous strength, with the main prominent ailment being a moderately unimportant persistent aggravation in his lungs. Besides, he kept a sound weight, and his mnemonic capability seemed ideal, with corridors liberated from huge plaque development. Put something aside for a minor collection on one leg anyway. Anyway, the post-mortem discoveries took an evil turn as the Los Angeles Province Division of Clinical Analysts Corona delivered its decision on August 28th. Jackson's demise was delegated to a murder credited to a deadly mix of inebriation, quite including propa and lorum. Adding to this lethal creation were diamolum, ephedrine, and lidocaine. Regardless of these disclosures, the total toxicology report stayed private. Dr. Murray went to court on September 27, 2011. He was viewed as at fault for compulsory homicide just 24 days after his discipline was concluded. 5 days after he was found blameworthy, he was kept in prison without being permitted to pay cash to leave. Before the preliminary, the jury needed to contemplate numerous things prior to deciding if Dr. Murray was blameworthy. Dr. Murray said he was honest and that he attempted to help Jackson by performing mouth-to-mouth on him. "I'm a guiltless man." I subsequently argue that he was not blameworthy, yet different specialists said he treated it terribly in light of the fact that he did it on Jackson's bed, not on a hard floor like he ought to have. Additionally, Dr. Murray may have used one hand for CPR when specialists generally use two hands. He ought to have known this since he's a specialist. It's okay to involve one hand for CPR on kids, but not on adults like Jackson. Something else that drove individuals crazy was that Dr. Murray didn't call 911 when Jackson was in a difficult situation. He said he didn't call since there was no telephone in the house and he didn't have the foggiest idea about the location, yet later they figured out he settled on numerous decisions on his telephone during that time. He didn't educate anybody concerning these calls before Dr. Murray quit attempting to save Jackson after just 10 minutes, yet a safety officer didn't have the foggiest idea about the location, and later they figured out he settled on numerous decisions on his telephone during that time. He didn't educate anybody concerning these calls before Dr. Murray quit attempting to save Jackson after just 10 minutes, yet a safety officer didn't have the foggiest idea about the location, and later they figured out he settled on numerous decisions on his telephone during that time. He didn't educate anybody concerning these calls before Dr. Murray quit attempting to save Jackson after just 10 minutes, yet a safety officer didn't have the foggiest idea about the location, and later they figured out he settled on numerous decisions on his telephone during that time. He didn't educate anybody concerning these calls before Dr. Murray quit attempting to save Jackson after just 10 minutes, yet a safety officer didn't have the foggiest idea about the location, and later they figured out he settled on numerous decisions on his telephone during that time. He didn't educate anybody concerning these calls before Dr. Murray quit attempting to save Jackson after just 10 minutes, yet a safety officer didn't have the foggiest idea about the location, and later they figured out he settled on numerous decisions on his telephone during that time. He didn't educate anybody concerning these calls before Dr. Murray quit attempting to save Jackson after just 10 minutes, yet a safety officer didn't call 9011 until 12:21 p.m. When the emergency vehicle came, Jackson didn't have a heartbeat. Dr. Murray said Jackson actually had a heartbeat when the emergency vehicle took him, yet the rescue vehicle individuals said Jackson's heart quit working before they even got him to the clinic in November 2011. Dr. Conrad was viewed as at legitimate fault for compulsory homicide. He didn't need to remain with different detainees and was known as a decent detainee by the sheriff's office. He was told to burn through 4 years in prison, yet he got out before that. Since he was great in prison, there were an excessive number of individuals in prison, so they let him out early. A ton of fans were exceptionally distraught about this. Joe Jackson, Michael Jackson's dad, said Dr. Murray was liable for his child's demise and attempted to sue him for it in 2010, yet he adjusted his perspective and dropped the case in 2012. Michael's mom, Katherine Jackson, attempted to sue the organization. Dr. Murray worked for AEG Live, saying they were additionally liable for his passing, yet she didn't win the case. Dr. Murray would have rather not been separated from any of these legal disputes. Dr. Murray can't fill in as a specialist any longer since his licenses were removed in the 3 states where he used to work. Bunches of individuals were as yet furious and suspected Dr. Murray ought to have been rebuffed all the more, as certain individuals made up loads of tales about what befell Michael Jackson. One thought was that somebody needed to dispose of him deliberately, and Dr. Murray assisted them with doing it. Individuals inquired as to why a specialist like him would give so many when he realizes it's hazardous. They likewise asked why he didn't tell the rescue vehicle individuals and different specialists about the excess so they could help. Michael Jackson, certain individuals feel that perhaps Dr. Murray was guaranteed he wouldn't cause problems assuming that he helped. They said perhaps he accepted the position. Consequently, others imagine that perhaps Dr. Murray was only faulted for Michael's demise, and it was truly another person's shortcoming. They think these influential individuals needed to get rid of Michael and Dr. Murray was only a pawn in their arrangement. Furthermore, we have Ruler, who spent away a long time ago, and it was a stunner that shook the entire thing. Since his demise, there's been this haze of secret looming over what truly music occurred, so we as a whole recollect the story that was taken care of for us. Sovereign, the unbelievable craftsman, left us at 57, found inert in his Minnesota domain. The authority word was, it was an air conditioner unintentional feeny glut, thanks to some fake Vicodin bound with a genuinely strong engineered narcotic yet. We should be genuine that left a ton of us with questions, and those questions are as yet lingering palpably. Now we as a whole realize Ruler was the perfect example for clean residing right veggie lover, no liquor misuse and exercise routine schedule that presumably humiliated us all everything. So when the news hit that he kicked the bucket from a pain reliever, Gletta resembled standby, what even the hotshots in the business, like L.A. Reid, was scratching their heads during a visit to CBS. Louisiana Reid lets the cat out of the bag that he accepted. Ruler was completely fine in the well-being division. The person was well-being cognizant as far as possible, vegetarian, no gorges, and most certainly not known for her. Subscribe She Spice for more videos.